years and years ago. That's down in South America. We climbed up to this plateau to see this pyramid thing that was up there, and there's this strange magnetic field on this. You climb up about 300 yards up to the top of this thing, and all of a sudden compasses just go wacky. And there's this big giant rock that's embedded inside the mountain, and it's some kind of big permanent magnet, and it makes everything just distort. And they have some kind of theory that somehow or other they use this magnet to lug these big giant stones up they built the pyramid out of. But when we went up there, there was a coffee shack, a little metal shack that was sitting there, and I heard Wagner playing out of it. And I went over, and there were these two Germans, and they had this perfect table set perfectly, you know, with the big giant forks and everything, and having this, and they were eating German food and listening to German music, and it turned out they had come there with an archaeological team, and they decided it was a good place to live, so they just stayed. And they'd been there for years, but they were not going to change their lifestyle. Of course not. You know, they imported everything. It was funny. They had a German wine. They had everything. It was actually kind of nice because I was sick of all the things, you know, that dried food you eat when you're backpacking in places. And I asked them how they got all this stuff in there, and they actually go to the city and pick up a shipment, and they bring it up by barrel. They have 3 of these donkey things, and they carry it up the mountains so that it's this major event once a month so that they can get all their supplies up there so that they don't have to eat any of the local food except vegetables, of course. Lettuce and things like that. And the other local thing they seem to be consuming in great abundance is called cocaine. Because I'll tell you, these people had been so industrious. You know, they had built this whole house and gardens and rock walls that went down the side, and I mean, it looked like they'd been busy. But the stuff grows everywhere there, so it was like they just take these leaves and they put a lime in it, and they just chew on it. And I guess it makes the inside of your mouth numb and keeps you really wired. And then they made coffee. They took coffee, and then they put all these cocaine leaves in it. Like coffee doesn't get you wired enough. And so they drank that. But I tried a cup of it, but it numbed the inside of my mouth. I couldn't use my tongue. I was I felt really alert, but I couldn't talk. Especially trying to talk to people who spoke German. My accent's bad enough as it is. You know, when you add to that the fact I couldn't use my tongue, and I couldn't taste anything either. That struck me as really not that exciting of a way. But I met this shaman when I was there, this guy he did healing and stuff, and he was an Indian from some strange tribe, and this guy had us all sit around in a big circle at the base of this pyramid, and he told all these stories, and the translator translated them from Spanish, because I don't speak Spanish that well. And he was, I don't speak even English that well, so why do you think I make such a great hypnotist? Almost everything I say is ungrammatical. You know. I met Milton, and he thought I'd studied hypnosis for years, and I hadn't started yet. But when it came to altered states, I grew up in San Francisco in the 60s, for heaven's sakes. I knew all about altered states. You know, I'd been in altered states over and over and over again. And it was funny, because I read all these books about hypnosis. And when I went to meet Milton, I thought what you were supposed to do is to go into as deep a trance as you possibly could have. But it turns out all these hypnotists always try to stay out of trance. I went to hypnosis conventions. They spend all their time trying to not go into trance, like it means you have a weak mind or something. And so when I met Milton, I went into as deep a trance as I possibly could. In fact, when I met Milton, he was floating around the room. And he, of course, thought this was the waking state, calibrated to it, and tried to get me into an altered state. And because he tried to hypnotize everybody. He was like a shark, you know, that consumes everything in its path. Come on in. It's all right. We haven't actually started yet. We were waiting for you. For a couple of reasons, actually. Because you and I spoke before you left, and I was surprised that that you had been to seminars with Tony Robbins and all these people, and you haven't spent time going into trance. You haven't done any hypnosis really at all?
Maybe, I don't know.
You don't know. Do. Well, I think you should know. Say, you know, as much as I studied with Milton, Milton was a really covert hypnotist, you know. He spent time putting people in trance in ways they wouldn't know about. I'm a little more blunt than that, you know. I walk up to people and look them straight in the eye and say, look me in the eye, you're growing tired. Things like that, you know. Because you've been in altered states. Do you need those headphones?
50%.
Do you have any idea what I'm saying to you? Are you just nodding and saying yes because you think it's the safe thing to do?
Maybe the reason why I've never been into a trance.
Maybe that isn't why you haven't been into a trance? Are you sure you're not a hypnotist that's not hypnotizing people as he isn't doing it now? Because the more you're not paying attention to things, you know, the more that things aren't the way they don't seem. So as far as you know, you don't need those. Trust me. Nothing I say makes any sense at all anyway, you know? But I think that, you know, given the kinds of things, because, see, he asked me, he said, you know, that they made that TV show in Germany where I took the person who wore really thick glasses and made it so they could see without their glasses, or at least that's what they said. But we tested their eyes. We actually used eye charts, and they actually could see better. Because I think that, you know, that hypnotic phenomenon themselves can be used in place of all kinds of other things. And being able to see better is not something that I think just people with glasses need to do. I think it's something that everybody needs to do. Think about it. Till I came along, the whole planet missed something this obvious. Let's see. And then people go like this. They go, as they switch from one channel to the other to try and decide what they want. You go into a supermarket, people walk up to the counter, they look and they go. Here, I'll answer it. I'm always willing to talk to somebody if they really want to. I go, hello? Who isn't this? And no, somebody let one ring in a seminar the other day, and I talked to somebody's mother. And you should have heard the things I said about her, too. It was, you know. I said, oh, yes, yeah. I said, I'm just the guy she's having an affair with. She's in the other room. It was her mother-in-law, actually, even worse. Well, she said it was her mother, but it turned out it was her mother-in-law. Anyway, I could tell you everything about her mother-in-law. Told me all about herself. She didn't seem to care who I was. I think she had too much coffee or too much cocaine. One or the other. Now, I tell you what, let's play a little game. Okay, you have relaxed in your life, right? Okay, you know what it feels like to relax. Okay. Now, see, it works this way. See, people come along and they say, oh, we are only using 10% of our brain. And I think that's a lot of nonsense. I don't think we're using anywhere near 10% of our brain. I think that what we're doing is using all of our brain, but we're not using it as many ways as we could. That actually, if people learn to focus their attention. Now, I found out that if I focus my attention on you, you'll relax. You believe that? Your hand. Just look at it. Your hand. Look at your hand. There you go. Just look at your hand. Take a deep breath and just focus your eyes. And as you look at your hand, I want you to notice the changing focus of your eyes. Because as you look at your hand, your peripheral vision is going to begin to distort slightly. And when it does, I want you to pull your hand a little bit towards your face and to realize what you're doing now is just learning something new. Something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. Because if you know what it feels like to relax, this is a chance to relax so that you slip right behind your own beliefs. because your conscious mind knows how to understand everything you do consciously. But unconsciously, there's so much more. You can keep your heart beating, your blood pressure, and very slowly now take a deep breath and let your eyes close. That's right. There you go. Just close your eyes. Now, I want you to listen to each and every word consciously, but unconsciously, I want you to take the feeling of relaxation and begin to move it in your body faster, just like what we did this morning. But give yourself a chance to relax. How are you doing? You've forgotten your name tag. See, you don't want to forget who you are. And worse than that, you don't want me to forget who you are. Because as you sit here, I want you to take the feeling and I want you to begin to double it. Take another deep breath and just let yourself relax. Because it's only through relaxing that you can begin to open your mind to new possibilities. Because if you can be convinced of one thing, you can be convinced of another. The process of being convinced itself is very human. Now very slowly, I want you to let this finger move towards your face. But only, that's right, only at the rate and speed that your unconscious begins to do new things. It's the pull you feel now to new learnings. And I want you to relax and to realize when your hand touches your face, you're going to really drop deeply. And inside your head, I want you to start to count. That's right. It's good to be out of control. Because when your hand touches your face, you're going to get a wonderful, good feeling. And you're going to just relax. That's right. Here it comes. Dun, 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 dun. Getting very close now. And you can say, oh no, my hand is going to make me relax. That's right. Here we go. And you may start laughing, but just start relaxing right now. There you go. All the way down. Just relax. It's okay. All you're doing is letting go of what it is that you don't need anymore. Just feel yourself float down. Take that good feeling and ride it like a wave. Float down and relax. Maybe come up a little bit and then float down more and more. And just like you can twitch unconsciously, you can also relax unconsciously. Because if you begin to think about times when you were younger, times and places in your childhood, when you were very, very young, the world was very, very different. But those parts of yourself are still there. Because when you were young, you saw new games and you were excited. And now it's time to start to play a new game. The game is called letting your unconscious and your conscious resources line up so that you begin to have greater inner strength. Because to me, everything that I do is about freedom. Hi, how you doing? Take a look at your hand. That's right. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes now. Just relax. And realize each and every one of you in here is engaged in the process of learning. And if you let your unconscious do just the same thing his did, give a chance to go in so that you begin to get a hold of the other mind. Not that mind, the other mind. The other mind. So that you can begin to feel good for no reason. Now in a minute I'm going to reach over and I'm going to touch you on the left shoulder. And when I do, I want you to get a wonderful sensation. Maybe a feeling you haven't had so much recently, but one that feels good. And I want you to start that good feeling, and then I want you to begin to let it build and build and build. That's right. Now, there it comes. Zzz, build it up. Zzz, build it up more. Double it and double it and double it till it begins to swirl all around you. Because I want you to take that feeling and I want you to let it wash down to your feet, all the way back up and down and around and around and around until it goes faster and faster. And open up your pores. Begin to bathe yourself in a good feeling. Because it's from your good feelings that you get your strength. That's right. Now, there you go. Zzz, build it up more. Zzz, build it up more. Because your unconscious is capable of letting you feel good. In fact, it's capable of making feelings that are better than any you've ever had. That's what makes the future so much better than the past. You see, most people ask me, they go, how come you don't deal a lot with people's past? And I go, because it's over. You see, that's the best thing about the past. Any limitation that you have is in your past. And that's what makes it a good thing. Because too many of us dwell upon the past as if it's the future. They go, well, I was scared. Well, the truth is, yes, you were. But it doesn't mean that you have to stay that way. You can just relax and feel good for no reason. You want these back? Or do you need them? Nah, I'll wear them. Hello? I can't understand you, Richard. What are you saying? Can you speak English? I can't fucking understand you. Talk about a bad feedback loop, huh? I was told I was the devil by someone, but I said no, but he does work for me from time to time. Now, the thing about learning in the form that we're going to do here is I'm trying to make things easy. And I know some of you have far too much education for that you think things need to be complicated. But they really don't. That to me, the process of learning is learning to use your unconscious resources. Hi, Peter. How you doing? Great. So you don't need no stinking headphones, do you? No, me neither. Every time I use them, except if I don't speak the language, then it's easier. See, if somebody here doesn't speak any English, as long as Stephen stays conscious, we got it made. I have lost a few of these translators, though. The trouble with being a translator is some of them only get to the trance part, and that's it. I had one translator who was trying to translate into Japanese who actually stood up at one time and said, please slow down. And I said, okay, and I started doing trance stuff, and the next thing we knew, he was face down in the table. Well, anyway, this afternoon, what I wanted to do was to start with a couple of things, because I want you guys to practice feeling good for no reason. Because to me, this is the basis of how people make good decisions. It's also the basis on... Allow me to get a little closer here. This chair is too comfortable. It makes... Oops, I'm sorry. But these are good trance chairs. We'll have to do some hypnosis, don't you think? For example, if you were to go into a deep trance, what do you think you'd feel like? Yes?
Warm.
Warm? What else? Have you ever been in a really deep trance?
Not sure about.
You're not sure of that. How would you know if you were?
I discussed it a lot of times because I think my conscious mind is usually really related with my situation. If it would be more outside, it would be...
Do you think you'd see yourself then? Would you be floating across the room? That's astro traveling. That's a little different.
Well, I'm more analyzing if I'm not in trance.
You're more analyzing if you're not in trance? And when you analyze, how do you do that? Do you have a voice that talks to you?
Yeah, I'm in a dialogue.
Inner dialogue. Okay, whose voice is it?
Mine.
Yours. Okay. Have you ever said to yourself, just shut the fuck up? See, that's Richard's first of the 3 major mantras you have to learn. The first one is you go inside and you take this position like this and you say to yourself, oh, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. I found out if you repeat this mantra long enough, eventually you'll shut the fuck up. Right? Because if you talk to yourself about what you're doing, then what you're doing is talking to yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean, but if you focus your attention in new places, for example, try something. Sit back, put your feet on the floors. Okay. And what I want you to do is to literally take a deep breath, hold it for a second, and when you slowly let it out, let your consciousness go straight down the front of you, down the inside of your legs, right out to your toes. And then when you inhale, let it come right up the back of you, straight up your spine, to the back of your neck. And then exhale again. And if you start to cycle this around, so take a few minutes, just close your eyes, take a deep breath, let your consciousness go straight down the front as you exhale, and then inhale and let it come right up the back of you, and then exhale, and just see what image comes into your mind, then take another breath. And do the same thing again. Let it slowly go out and begin to organize your consciousness. Now, if you find that you're talking to yourself, this is the best time to say, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. And if you laugh, that's okay, as long as you feel good when you're laughing. You know, because if you're saying shut the fuck up, it doesn't leave a lot of room to say anything else. If you say shut the fuck up and a voice goes, I won't shut up, and then you say shut up, and it says, I won't shut up. Just keep doing that, and eventually you'll just shut up. The other thing you can do is you can hum to yourself. You can go, right? But if you give yourself a chance, rather than talking about what you're doing, realizing that if you just aim your consciousness in a new direction, you'll begin to open up the opportunity to begin to feel and to do different things. That somebody asked me, they said, how is it possible for people to be so motivated, that some people are really motivated and some people don't seem to get anything done? And I said, well, there's a difference between people who do things and people who talk about things. If you take your consciousness and begin to aim it in a new direction, and as you do so, let it so that it goes down and goes back up, what you're going to begin to do is to just reorganize your thoughts. Since it's not something you've done before, what's going to happen is you're going to begin to affect your own neural cortex, the motor pathways, in a new way. Now, if you add this one step further and begin to think about what it feels like to relax, so that as you move your consciousness, you begin to take the feeling of relaxation. Literally think of a time when you were really, really relaxed. See what you saw when you were there, hear what you heard, and then just step inside, and as the feeling begins to fill your body, then just take the feeling and begin to double it. Because if you give yourself a chance to relax, a chance to line up not just your conscious resources, but your unconscious resources, it gives you the ability to begin to think about things differently. Because if you begin to think that what you're doing is easy, and what you want is to make things easy, if you begin at this moment, as soon as you feel comfort, as soon as you feel some relaxation, just start to count from 1 to 20. Go 1, and hear yourself yawn inside your head. Go, oh. Go 2, and just say the word relaxing. 3, say the word soften. 4, and if you begin to count and lower the tone of your voice, slow down the tempo of your internal voice, and just begin to relax so that you go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And just begin to let your consciousness float inside your body. Only let your consciousness float to whatever feels the best. Do your toes feel the best? Your right ankle, your left ankle? Your right knee, your left knee? Your right ear, your left ear? The back of your head, the front of your head, your chest, your stomach? If you can find one place that's relaxed, you can begin to let it spread. Because if you can, let the relaxation spread, then you can begin to do new things. Because from this state of relaxation, you can go one step further. You can begin to let go of the beliefs that you hold on to that don't help you. If you believe that you have to suffer to get good things, then I want to ask you the question, both consciously and unconsciously, have you ever been wrong? If the answer is yes, then this would be a good thing to be wrong about. Because in fact, it's not true. You've learned many things without suffering. You learned your native language. You learned to do all kinds of things as a child without really having to hurt, just by trying them, by imagining them, and through your imagination, being able to get beyond what would have normally been believed that is possible. We still can't build machines that speak a language fluently, but yet each and every one of you has learned one or more languages fluently. This is one of the miracles about the human mind. Now, the fact that the human mind can do amazing things means it's time for you to begin to put it to the test. Because inside yourself now is the chance to begin to find out if in fact you can begin to do something very, very magical. If you take something that has always been difficult for you, if you think about art and you go, oh, I'm not artistic, perhaps you're wrong, that you just haven't been able yet to be able to take something called joy and to express it in just the right way. Because if you stop now, you know what it's like, the most joyful moments of your life. Let your mind drift back, back, back in time to a place when you are feeling some joy. Let it start. Curl your toes back and feel it with your whole body. Some people only smile with their mouth. I find it's better if you start with your toes, let it come all the way up your legs and all the way up your body and out your fingertips and all over your face. Because if you smile from your toes, it's a full body smile. And if you begin to take that good feeling and remember the times and places from bits and pieces of past memories where you felt some joy, and take the feeling and begin to spin it like we did this morning. Because if you take that good feeling and begin to spin it, and spin it faster, and spin it faster and faster and faster, and as it begins to move throughout your body and keep it spinning, this is the point where you can begin to explore the limits of your own beliefs. Because you know inside your mind there are ideas that have stood in your way. Some people don't feel they're pretty. Some people don't feel they're smart. But you see, the truth is, if you're smart enough to have learned a language without even knowing a language, you are in fact a learning machine. But that the best learning that you do is done with your other mind. So now it's time to begin to engage those resources. Because the other mind, the back of your mind, the unconscious processes keep your heart beating. The part of you that blinks if something starts to fly into your eye. The part of you that remembers to breathe deeply. And the part of you that manages to avoid an accident, even though you don't know quite how you did it. The part of you that notices things and protects you is the part of you that can try something new. If you, for example, stop and think about the thing that you've always felt too limited about, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not quick enough, not artistic enough, not musical enough, not clever enough, whatever it is you think it is, let the belief come up. Only keep spinning the joyful feeling, and something inside you will see the miracle occur. Because your beliefs are not truths, they're just beliefs. They're neurocortical pathways in a habit of firing over and over again and making a bad feeling. And when you begin to spin a joyful feeling through the bad feeling, then something silly begins to happen. Your limitations begin to dissolve right before your eyes. So that as you sit here now, spinning a joyful feeling, beginning to think about the limitations, I want you to take serious ideas about how much joy you can feel in your love life, joy in your work, joy in your children, joy in your friends. And I want you to begin to break on through to the other side. Because the pictures inside your mind are only limited by your imagination. If you change the pictures and you change the voices, you change your potential. Because potentially there are some things that you might have never done in your life until you change the way you think about them. If you really believe that people can't change, you won't do everything with every fiber of your soul to change them, and you certainly won't give yourself the same chance. Now, my question to you is, as you start to go in deeper and deeper, give yourself a chance now to relax even more. Ask yourself the question, just how relaxed can I be? And feeling good at the same time. Let yourself start to slip, 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 down and down. Just let yourself float, and on the inside of your mind, you don't need to say anything. Just pay attention to which parts of your body are relaxing. If you notice a place that's tense, only ignore it. Just go for what helps you to soften, to feel smoother. And once again, you can start to count. Only this time count from 20 to 40. Start 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And if you begin to relax the muscles in your face, the muscles in your cheeks, the muscles in your chin, your shoulders, your chest, maybe then you could float up out of your body a little bit and look at yourself and see yourself relaxing. Because if you use every part of your imagination, if your internal voice is occupied with counting, at the same time I'm speaking, and you're watching yourself relax, suddenly you begin to line up all your resources to find out just how good you can feel. If you must ask questions, ask how much comfort is there. And just let yourself float down. And if you float back up, just float back down again. All we're doing here is preparation. Because the more you are able to focus your attention, the more things you'll be able to do no matter what you do. Too many people, as they start to relax, forget you're supposed to feel good while you do this. So remember to take some joy with you. Take a little giggling. If you get down deep enough, you're bound to find a giggle. And the giggle you find is only going to help you to begin to let go of what it is that you no longer need. Now, I know that whether or not you know, your unconscious knows just what learning is about. Because right now, all we're trying to do is to learn, to begin to go down and find a happy thought. If Peter Pan could fly with a happy thought, imagine what you'll be able to do. Because I think it's time now for you to begin to really let your imagination dream dreams of the possibilities of the things you could seize in your own future. Because if you can begin to really relax, everything slows down. Time stands still. Every event begins to change in its very nature. Because instead of automatically over-responding by hesitating, by being nervous, by worrying, wouldn't it be better if instead somewhere deep inside you, you heard something as simple as, ah. So you could begin inside to notice all the things that you hadn't noticed thus far. If it was possible to miss something as dramatic as an accessing cues, then it's possible you've missed all kinds of things that your own endocrine system can do. Because there are many juices inside of you, ones that can make you happy or ones that could make you angry. There's ones that can make you depressed, and there's also ones that could make it so that you're too happy to be depressed. Because if you let your good feelings begin to build up and begin to spin around, if you curl your toes back and smile deliberately, I'm sure that the things that you will have found are the chance to try something a little bit better. Because if you begin to look at things and make decisions about what you want and what you can do from the point of view of how good you can feel, you'll begin to discover a new vibrance, a new vigor, a new sense of well-being inside yourself. Because if you move from the position of lining up conscious and unconscious resources, of making your internal voices so that they sound beautiful, and making pictures of things so that they'll lead you to what you want to do rather than scare the piss out of you, you'll discover that life in general becomes easier. Because during the course of the next few days together, I'm going to ask you to try to do things differently so that, in fact, you're going to get steps to move in. The first step this afternoon is the step of finding out how well you listen when you're really relaxed and how much control you have over how good you can feel. Somebody here said, oh, they wanted to know how they could be like Tony Robbins. And then I said, well, gee whiz, are you sure you want to be like him? Because, you see, Tony works his ass off all the time. You know, Tony is a hard-working guy. He travels all the time. His parents have to make an appointment to see him. That seems to me to be a little too busy. That maybe you should decide that if you think that he's a happier person than you are, you ought to start by being happier and then decide what you want to do with your own time. Too many people in the world try to emulate someone else rather than to reach the potential that I believe is inside them. I've seen too many people blossom from being total chumps to being very competent, exciting, happy human beings. I've seen psychiatric patients change their life overnight to being somebody who was trapped in a whirlwind of scary, frightful ideas into being somebody with a sense of humor that knew the meaning of the second mantra. Because the second mantra that Richard teaches people is lighten the fuck up. Lighten the fuck up. Because if you give yourself a chance to lighten up, the very things that you think about, if you think about the things that float through your mind that bother you, push them off into the distance. Push them far enough away, and you'll get some distance from them. Just like the lady I started to tell you about this morning. She was terrorized by thoughts that people were late. She imagined them being in accidents, having their arms broken and their legs broken, and blood splurting all over the place. And when I asked her, I said, ma'am, has it occurred to you to just not do this? She said, well, I don't think I know that I was. But if you don't slow down, then you don't get a chance to be able to perceive what's going on inside of you. If you don't perceive what's going on inside of you, then you never get the chance to let go of what you don't need. And if you have anger inside of you, it only stays there in that you move it in a circle inside you. Having feelings is an art form. And some of us have become masters of the unnecessary. Now it's time to become a master of your own desires. Because the more you master what's unnecessary, the more miserable you'll be able to make yourself. And I don't know about you guys, but I have clients that are such experts, it's beyond comprehension. I had one client that was sent to me by his grandfather. His grandfather's a very, very successful man. In fact, he was a chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. He was a multi-billionaire. But yet, he told me his grandson was a miserable, had been locked away in a drug rehab center. And every time he got out of the drug rehab center, he took all these drugs. He took heroin, he took PCP, he took methadone. In fact, he shot both of them, as if one isn't enough. But when I asked his son, I said, what is it you do inside your mind that makes you think about taking this drug again? And he said, well, when I think about it, I just know how good I feel when I take it. And I said to him, I said, this is a very short movie. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, let's lengthen the movie out a little bit. Because when you think about bad decisions that you constantly get into, some people keep falling in love with the wrong person. But typically it's because they don't run a movie long enough inside their mind to make a good decision. Or they run a movie that's way too long for a short decision. We've all been out to lunch with the person who takes an hour to decide what they want. They read everything on the menu and then they look at you and go, what are you going to have? As if that has anything to do with what they're going to eat. But typically people like that, when you say, I'm going to have the bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, pick anything else. And as a way of deciding what you're going to have in your life, finding out what other people have and picking anything else might not be so bad in a restaurant, but it's terrible when it comes to husbands and wives. So in terms of the decisions that you make, you want to be able to have something which is appropriate. Now, right now, I'm asking you to decide how you want to feel about new things. Because the power of having beliefs, if you think right now, if I asked each and every one of you, do you believe the sun is coming up tomorrow? I know that you would all say yes. Actually, the earth turns, the sun pretty much doesn't come up, but it looks that way. And we all know what we mean by that. The phenomenon, if you didn't believe that there was going to be a tomorrow, being in a seminar to learn things you can use in the future would be an extremely bad decision. On the other hand, since you do believe that there is a future, the trick is, how do I make decisions so that I can make my future brighter? So if you stop and you think in your mind, this is something you believe. Look at where the image is. And I ask you, do you believe the sun is coming up tomorrow? Even though you don't answer out loud, you know the answer. There's a certain voice from a certain location, a certain picture in a certain place that produces certainty inside of you. Now let's try something arbitrary. See the place where the picture is inside your mind? Peel it off like a sticker. Leave a blank hole there. And then I want you to begin and to wash in something that you need to believe about yourself. That if you need to believe you're smarter, if you need to believe you're artistic, if you need to believe you're lovable, whatever it is, fill it in so that you begin to build for yourself arbitrarily a new belief. Because if you can start by building new beliefs, then building new behaviors is a lot easier. Think of the goofy things that humans believe and live by. Some of us believe that fishing is a sport. This is where you drag string behind a boat. The only sport is the fish trying to find the string. It's not really a sport for the people, it's a sport for the fish. They're the ones that have to do all the work. You just sit back there and the boat goes, and you drag the string behind it. The fish are the ones that have the challenge. Can they go out? Can they find a hook? Does it have bait on it? Can they catch up with the boat? And the fish are swimming next to each other, racing for the hook. The fish are the ones engaged in a sport. The humans really do very little. But yet some of us think of it. Some people think of bowling as a sport. Think about this. It's one of the few sports you can play and drink at the same time. But you see, some people think playing tennis is fun. That is, whacking balls back and forth across a net and chasing after them. My dog won't even do that. My dog says she's not a retriever. She doesn't have to fetch nothing. It's not in the contract. Now, I know that it's possible for each one of you. If you put one new belief up inside your mind, it's a chance for you this time to begin to start things differently. Because if you can just put one new idea in your head, what's going to happen is that you're going to begin to offer yourself the opportunity to do something new and in a different way. Now, in a moment, I want you to do something. I want you to just count from 5 to 1. Only I want you to wake up all the way back to your waking state, because we're just going to practice altering our states a little bit. And I want you to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. How you doing? Marcus? How you doing, Marcus?
Fine.
You sure? You okay, Peter? Remember I said to wake up now, okay? Some of you missed that instruction. You opened your eyes, but you're not all the way back. Come on back. See, we want to practice. The thing about having flexibility is it starts with flexibility in consciousness. I find the reason most of my clients get stuck is they're too rigid about any state of consciousness, that they manage to make themselves depressed on an ongoing basis. because of the way in which they think about things. Remember, all learning is state conditioned. That they found out years ago, they did a study, they took medical students, and when it was time for them to take their finals, they made them all switch rooms. And they found out almost all the medical students would fail the test. And if before they even did the test, they stuck them back in the same room that they had learned it in, gave them the same test that they had just taken in another room, that they would all pass the test. If they took half of them and moved them into another room and left the other half in there, the half they moved would get terrible scores and the other half would do well. Part of it had to do with they couldn't figure out what it was, and then they discovered a lot of it had to do with the way the lighting was in the room, the hum of the fluorescent lights, that all of these things served to put people into an altered state. That as they listened to the lectures, they got used to sitting in that chair and going into that trance. And that in fact, a lot of their learning became conditioned such that the ideas wouldn't come back out unless they sat in their same seat. That's why people get so violent about their chair in seminars. I don't know if you guys have been to seminars, but I see people fighting over a chair like it really matters. Like if they can't sit in this chair, the knowledge won't go in. But in fact, if you have enough flexibility in consciousness, you can take the learnings you have to different places. If you're confident doing one thing, you can use it to become confident about doing other things. That if you're, the kind of person that's sure about your skills in one thing, you can be sure enough that you can get up and talk about them. That your ability to make this thing fun or that thing fun is not genetically determined. It's not that some people like fishing because they have the fishing gene. That's not the way it works. The way it works is we have one way of thinking about things that makes us like things, and another way which makes it so they seem stupid, or that makes them so they seem hard. All of those things are really about states of consciousness, and they have more to do with the way we were taught by our teachers. Because every teacher you had in school was a good hypnotist and did in fact give you post-hypnotic suggestions. They began to tell you, oh yes, you're not good at math. People went, not good at math. They said, yes, numbers will confuse you. Yes, numbers will confuse me. These are the same people, by the way, who don't believe in hypnosis. I meet people all the time who come up and they go, I cannot be hypnotized. And I say, how do you know you can't be hypnotized? And they go, I was tested by hypnotists. These Henry Hilgard people from Stanford believe that some people can be hypnotized and others can't. They brought me somebody who on their sliding scale was a 0, completely unhypnotizable, according to the experts. They brought this woman to me. There were 2 psychologists. They were standing on either side of this woman, and when I looked at her, she was in a deep trance already. I couldn't, they said, this woman is totally unhypnotizable. And they looked at her and they said, isn't that true? And she went, yes. And I said, okay, so if that's true. So I brought her up in front of an audience of 350 people. Now, this woman's never been in front of 350 people. It's not the same context. So all the rules change. I put her on a swivel stool and I had her facing me in the back and everybody sat down. And I had the 2 psychologists sitting in the front because they were experts on hypnosis. And I said, if you saw a trance, you would know what it looks like, right? And they went, oh, yes, we know all about hypnosis. And I went, great. So I turned this woman around, and when she turned around and looked at the audience, she became petrified. She was like this. And I said, now, you're completely unhypnotizable. And she went, yes. And I said, well, since you're completely unhypnotizable, if I looked at you and told you, in a moment, I'm going to count to 3, you're going to shut your eyes, go deep inside, and totally relax. 1, 2, 3, and she went. Now, how come she responded? Well, she responded because I did things differently than they did at Henry Hilgard's lab. There, they hypnotize you with a tape recorder. I'm not making this up. I would never even think of anything this stupid. They sit you down in a chair. There's another chair sitting next to you with a tape recorder on it. The tape recorder has on it a hypnotic induction, and not particularly a good one, because the people there believe voice tone and voice tempo have absolutely no impact on human consciousness. In fact, they believe the way to be a good hypnotist is to speak in a monotone. so that you do not interfere with people's ability to relax. If you ask me, all it does is make you giggle. It doesn't help you to relax. Some people can go into trance in spite of this hypnotic induction. I, on the other hand, find that it's quite common for people to be influenced by voice tone. And I know this because I've met people whose voice tone makes my hair stand on end. If you guys see, I was born in New Jersey. And I don't know if you guys know where New Jersey is. If you ever seen The Sopranos are in New Jersey. Do they show that here? Wait, you'll get it. It's another ongoing, never-ending American TV program where people are fascinated with criminals. It also happens to be where I was born. Anyway, I mean, I did a hypnosis seminar in New Jersey. I couldn't believe it because people there has tonality in their voice tone and sounds more like this. So they was looking at people saying, now as you sit there, I want you to relax. And there's just nothing that really makes you feel relaxed. It's like fingernails across a blackboard. You know, this is not the most relaxing thing in the world. See, to me, once you learn to have control, more control over your voice tone, more control over the way in which you phrase words, more control over your intonation, it becomes very obvious that voice tone affects people. See what I mean? Don't worry, you're just responsive. You know that's a good thing. If you weren't responsive, that would mean you were dead. And I have too much history with dead people. So it's much better to respond because the alternative sucks. See, watch how easy it is. All I have to do is look at you and go like this. I can go 1, 2, that's right, 3, 4, 5. Close your eyes now. Just drift down and take a moment, and I want you to feel good. That's right. How about a little tingling at the midline? You can tingle better than that. Because if you begin to feel a little tingling, it can spread a little warmth, if you know what I mean. Then suddenly you can begin to realize the exciting thing about what it is that we're learning to do here is you're learning how responsive a human being can be. The goal in many psychotherapies, like Gestalt therapy, they always said, oh, people can't make each other feel things. I have an outstanding bet with any Gestalt therapist that I can make them feel things without touching them. It's easy. You can do it with voice tone. You can do it with words. You can make them feel good. You can make them feel bad. That's what we do as living organisms. To some degree, the chair is responding to the voice tone I have because the sound waves are striking it. But it can't respond as intensely as the person that's sitting in it. This is a good thing because it means that you're able to make changes a lot easier than you would ever expect. In fact, if you think of something about yourself where you hesitate too much, if you think about something which causes you difficulty, some place where you begin to tighten up, a place where you begin to stress up, one thing that can happen, as easy as 1, 2, 3, you can get the giggles. Because if you can get the giggles really good, you will begin to become unglued in the future. Because if instead of being too serious and feeling bad, you start to giggle, what will happen is your problems will disappear a lot faster than a Valium can make them disappear. And it's a lot more long-lasting. Because people always tell you, they say, geez, you're going to look back at this and laugh. My policy is, why the fuck wait? If you're going to look back and laugh, you might as well start laughing now and enjoy yourself. It does not make you a hit with a lot of people, I have to admit, because people look at you and go, now wait a minute, this is serious. Stop laughing. Now, I want you to think about what it was you were thinking about. You have a serious problem? Gotcha. Okay, now think about it, because if you start laughing, here's the good part. Now you can begin to think of new solutions. Because if you feel bad in the same way, you can only think of the same ideas. So it means you're stuck in exactly the same fashion. On the other hand, if you begin to start laughing, just the drugs from the altered state, because you know what, when you laugh, what happens? Endomorphines, free drugs. Because every one of you, you know, is a drug manufacturing plant. In fact, it's not the drugs that actually get you high. It's your body's response to them. And after a while, you begin to discover. If any of you have ever seen a stage hypnotist, have seen a stage hypnotist make people drunk without drinking a single drop. You know, it's one of the most common hypnotic phenomenon you ever see. Every time I've gone to Vegas, there's a stage show with some hypnotist. I went and saw Pat Collins, the hip hypnotist. Have you ever seen her on TV or something? She was very famous in the 40s and the 50s, and I thought she was dead, but it turns out she was still alive. She was just a little bit older. But she came up and she took a whole bunch of people and put them on the stage, and she did all these different hypnotic phenomenon with them. And then she told them all that when they opened their eyes, they would be absolutely, totally as drunk as they had ever been. And these people came out and they were just like totally buzzed beyond belief. And one of them got up and walked away. Now the others she like put back into trance and made it go away, but this one person disappeared. They were gone. And when I went out of the stage show, they were sitting out in the casino, still blasted out of their head, playing a slot machine like this and talking to somebody and like that. And this one guy came up from the casino. He was a security guard. And he goes, "Sir," he said, I think you better come with me. You've had too much to drink. And the guy turned around, he looked at me and said, "Wait a minute." He says, "I haven't had a drink in 5 years." And the guy goes, "Right, sure you haven't. Just come with me, sir." And he pushed him away. He goes, "Little luck." He says, "Give me a sobriety test." And the guy goes, "What do you mean?" He said, "Give me one of those breath tests." He says, "I'll prove it to you." And so the guy goes and he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out a balloon, and the guy blows in the balloon. And the guy goes back into his office and he comes back out and he gives him another balloon. And the guy fills up the balloon. He goes back in his office. He came out and he gave him a third balloon. Right? And then he looked at the balloon, and I was laughing. I thought this was funny because I just was cracking up. And the security guard looks at me, and he goes, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "You." And he said, "Me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You're really funny. You think there's going to be something different in the third balloon?" I said, "The guy doesn't drink." And he goes, "He looks as drunk as could be." And I said, "Yeah, he was hypnotized." I said, "He was in the stage show." I said, "He wandered off." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Have you read the sign? Look, it says, hypnosis." And the guy looked up and went, "Yeah." And I said, "Have you ever watched the stage show?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You remember Pat Collins made people drunk?" And he went, "Yeah." And I said, "He's one of them." And I said, "And so am I." Then I looked at him and I said, "And so are you." Now, the thing is he was far too serious. Once he filled the balloon once, he should have been able to accept what his senses told him. But most of us will delete anything that does not match what we already believe. So if you believe you're not good at something, then of course, even if you do something good at it, you won't notice. You won't notice. I don't know how many times I've seen young kids paint or do some kind of art, and then they just look at it and they go, "Ah," because teachers told them they weren't artistic. So they never see the beauty in things. If you don't take the time to notice things in a new way, guess what? You won't. Anyway, gosh, an hour went by, poof, just like that. Can you believe it? Exactly 1 hour, bang, just like that. Funny how time moves fast and moves slow, depending upon what state I'm in. Anyway, there's one thing I wanted to mention. I know that some of you have been coming up and asking me questions, and I wanted to tell you that for the rest of the time we're here, if you do have questions about something, or you think of something tonight, write it down on a piece of paper in English, okay? Big letters so I can see them, and just set it up here on the table so that, if, you know, because the time we have here is not really that structured. It's not that we decided to do a workshop that's on design human engineering or on this or on that. So we really can talk about pretty much anything we want to. So if there are things that interest you, I want you to either feel free to raise your hand and ask questions, if you can, or at least write them down and give them to me. If you don't know how to write something in English, ask Stephen and he will write it down for you. Or you can ask the workshop master. He's my slave master for the weekend. because somebody once asked me, they said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm the highest paid hooker on the face of the earth, but I only give words.